Okay, so what's up, guys? In today's video, we have my good friend Gilad, who's actually gonna be talking to us about his story, his business, and just running us through everything that he's actively doing at the moment. What's up? What's up, bro? So talk to us, bro. Talk to us. What's going on?
What's happening, bro? How you doing?
I'm good, bro. How you doing? How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good to see you again.
Good, good, bro. Funny story, like how we initially met, like through A pairs. Like we met when was it? Like last year, right?
Yeah, it must have been roughly about 12 months ago or so.
Nice, nice, nice. And now you're transitioning into different models, if I'm not mistaken, or
Correct, correct.
cool, cool. I know, like I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to know your story, how you started, in terms of like how we got connected on all of those bridging those gaps basically. And I'm sure you have a lot of value to provide on that. So I'm just gonna let you talk, and I'm not gonna say anything, and then I'll just ask questions when I have something that pops up.
Perfect, bro. Sounds good. Well, before I start, I just want to say thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's obviously an honor to speak to someone like you. For people that don't know who you are, you're an awesome guy. You work very hard, and I'm just honored to be on a podcast with you. So that's what I want to say before I get started.
Thank you,
Um,
bro. Thank you.
yeah,
Likewise.
sure, bro. For sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I think just to really kick it off and start things off, I think I just want to speak about my story and where I came from. Um, I went through school struggling academically. I was never academically inclined. I was the person who took math lit. I was the person who struggled with every subject I did. Um, Believe it or not, my friends actually called me veggie, like a vegetable in school. That was
Hmm.
like a nickname for me. And at the time, like I wasn't being true to the person I was. So like I'd laugh at it, we'd make jokes. I kind of somewhat accepted that I was now known as veggie and I had to act that way. And I think that the way that people perceive you to be and what they start calling you, it can actually get into your own head and you start thinking of yourself as that person. But long story short, this happened in like grade 10, grade 11, went on. Something that I was quite inclined in was sports. I was always like the captain of whatever team I did. I played first team rugby, soccer, played provincial sport at in across like cricket, soccer. Um, Ended up falling just short of the Lions rugby side. But yeah, that's a story for another time. But essentially, the reason why I'm saying this is because I think there's a lot of people out there who can relate to my story where you struggle academically when all your friends around you get called up and they get in straight A's and they get in ducks of the school. Shout out to my wife, ducks. But yeah, I just couldn't relate on an academic level. And I feel like it made me think when I was in school that I was so much less of a person than them. And that's like so far from the truth, but I just didn't know better during the time. So as the years went by, I started to find myself. My brother and I started a very successful sneaker and streetwear business where essentially what we do is we'd pick up items for retail and we'd resell them. So just to put that in hindsight, essentially what we'd do is we'd buy a pair of shoes for like, let's say 3 grand and we'd resell it for like 5 grand. And slowly we'd build up our capital um, and get going like that. And one thing I also want to touch on because I feel like people can relate to this is that I wasn't born with a lot of money. Like the way I was brought up was like if I want to go on holiday, like yes, my parents are gonna try to do their absolute and very best to send me there, but if I wanted to go to Cape Town, like I needed to pay for myself. And I'm not decrediting my parents in any way. I feel like the best way you could possibly grow up is with great parents, but no money. And I'm not to say that I had no money. You know, I was very grateful and blessed enough to have a roof over my head and always have food on the table. But I feel like the community that I come from, there's a lot of money around me and there's a lot of people who are just given everything in life. So I also want to make that very clear that I didn't come from a lot. Um, so yeah, anyways, going through school, struggling, and long story short, a lot of my friends were going to university, others were taking gap years. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, so I decided to take a gap year, not where I go on a program or anything crazy like that, just to kind of finish school, set my mind free and just decide on what I wanted to do. And 6 months down the line, I came across a very famous man named Iman Gadzi, who I'm sure quite a lot of you know who he is or what he's about. But essentially, he had a program called Agency Accelerator that I joined. It was it was a very, it was a significant investment at the time, but at the same time, I knew that the investment was just going to multiply my future. So I bit the bullet. I joined his program, and long story short, I went on to start my agency, which is now called Workflowers. Just to highlight what we do at the moment, we currently help private practice owners attract their ideal clients and grow beyond one-to-one consultations. So, for example, physiotherapists, biokineticists, dietitians, nutritionists, we help those sort of people, and we help them grow their practice. So that just touches on that. Yeah, went through Iman's program. That was all well and great. I feel like that got me off the ground, set the foundations. And then I walked into another very famous man called Ethan Welby, who I joined his school community and his info product, which has been great. And I still use to this day. We have coaching calls every Tuesday and Thursday. So I'm very happy to have that in my barrel. That's definitely supported me. I feel like with Iman's thing, it's quite general. So I feel like his program kind of gets you from like 1 to potentially 10K. And there are people who exceed that. But then I feel like Ethan's thing is a lot more premium and it's a lot more, okay, once you're at 10K or close to, how do you kind of remove yourself from the day to day? Or how do you scale beyond that? So yeah, I'm very grateful for where I'm at as of right now. I feel like in life everything plays out the way it's meant to be, even if you're not quite sure how it's supposed to be at that time. And I feel like that was me in school. Like I feel like I didn't know what I was going to do. I feel like I didn't know how I was going to succeed, but I just had that feeling within, knowing that I'll pull it off. And I'm so far from where I want to be, but at the same time, I look back and I'm super proud of how far I've come. And I feel like it's so important to acknowledge that because the agency world is so flashy and everyone's flashing like their Patek Philippe's and their Rolexes and their APs and their you name it, like any car and like they're posting about it and they're on private jets and I feel like you don't see the downside. So I'm trying to showcase my journey and make that super clear of what that actually looks like and the struggles that go behind it because not everyone goes from 0 to 150K in 30 days. It may seem like that online, but I promise you it's not. It's really not. So yeah, I think that's something that I'd like to kind of outline.
Interesting, interesting. And I know for you, like, there's so many things to unpack from that. Firstly, I just want to like say congrats, man. Like your journey from start to where you are today, bro. And just to take us back, with the sneaker business, like how did that start? Like, how did you have the idea for the sneaker business? Because for me, like, I know I don't know if you know this, but I used to sell lollipops, like back in the
Yeah,
day. I used to
that's
sell lollipops. And it was pretty decent, bro. It was pretty decent. But I mean, from selling sneakers, like how did that idea come about? And from that idea of you selling sneakers to now jumping into the agency world, that transition, like how did that happen for you?
yeah, perfect. So with regards to the sneakers, I think the first thing that my brother and I wanted to do, and by the way, my brother and I do everything together. He's my
Mm-hmm.
best friend. Um, Everything we earned, everything we lose, everything we win, we share. So I just want to make that super clear for potential siblings out there. Um, there's no one more powerful than someone that is literally your blood brother. So yeah, in terms of the sneakers, the way we got into it was that my brother and I had pretty much saved up our pocket money for years and years. Like my grandpa used to give us 50 Rand every Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And what my brother and I did was we combined all those 50 Rands and we ended up buying a pair for roughly about 2,000 Rand at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember it taken to an existing store in South Africa where we purchased the pair for 2 grand and we tried to sell it to the store owner for 2.3. So literally
Mm-hmm.
300 Rand profit. And he ended up saying yes. And my brother and I were like completely shocked at this concept. We were like so over the moon. It literally took us months on end to save up to be able to afford this one singular pair that we had to combine our money together to purchase it. And long story short, we made 300 Rand, and slowly we started flipping more and building up capital. At some point, we got investors on board, which is
Hmm.
a story for another time. But yeah, that's kind of how we got started with the sneaker stuff. And then in terms of transitioning into the agency world, the sneakers were great and it was brilliant for cash flow because you can literally flip stuff like you can flip 10 items today, 10 tomorrow, and so forth. You need money, you can just flip something. But the agency world is just so much more scalable. I think the
Hmm.
idea of living free, having location freedom, time freedom, I didn't think the sneakers were built for that. Um,
Hmm.
so transition into the agency world where I could actually achieve that. I could achieve the time, location, and financial freedom that I actually wanted to achieve. And then also something that I could work with people internationally. So obviously living in South Africa, it's relatively cheap compared to a country like the UK, US, Australia, something like that. So I just wanted a business model where I could earn in foreign currencies, but then spend that money in a country like South Africa or a country like Bali or something like that. And I couldn't exactly do that with the sneakers overseas, but the agency concept, I could do exactly that. And we've now got clients in the US, UK, and Australia. So I feel like that was definitely one of the core factors as to why we transitioned from the sneakers into the agency world.
100%. And you touched on a very important point that I think I'm sure a lot of people in Africa particularly, like where we're at, don't really think about it, like in terms of getting clients in the US and the UK and Australia, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so with that, I don't know how it was for you particularly, but before like I started, getting clients from overseas in terms of people that are outside of Africa, like my worldview was nowhere near thinking that it was not comprehensible to think that, hey, someone would actually see the value that I have to provide from another world because I had never experienced it. And I wonder if it was the same for you exactly, or did you just jump into it without no fear and say, hey, like I'm just gonna do this, and people are just gonna get my service, and if they don't, then that's okay. I don't know how it was for you, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Once again, it pulls me back to the point of like, I was never quite sure what I was going to do, but I was certainly sure that I'd put it off. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
was that idea of just not being scared to fail and kind of taking it on the chin. Like, if this doesn't work, it is what it is, but at least I've
Mm-hmm.
learned, I've grown, I've gained experience. So I think if you adopt that mindset where as long as you take action, you're going to benefit. I feel like that was really where I excelled. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
by adopting that mindset, that was what truly allowed me to overcome that fear and just reach out, be like, look, Three, here's the value. Like, take it or leave it. Like, I'm offering it to you. If you want it, by all means, take it. But if not, like, no worries at all. And I feel like if you take that approach where it's like not so pushy, it's not so salesy, I think it removes all fear and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's just beneficial on both ends.
100%, and I agree. And with the private practice, you mentioned that you're working particularly with private practice. How did that niche or that specific industry come about for you? Because I know a lot of people are doing SMMA for businesses in the garage space, in the wedding event space, or even what's the most popular one? E-com space and even crypto space. So where did the idea of doing private practice for healthcare practitioners, basically people in that specific field come about? Because you're the first person that I know that, like, I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I didn't know about aligned healthcare practitioners until I met you and you told me about it. So how did that come about?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I learned when I joined Iman's program, it was like when you were getting started with crafting your offer and selecting a niche,
Mm-hmm.
he kind of guided you towards a niche. And the way that he did that, it was like, what niche as of right now do you have a competitive advantage in? And for me at the
Mm-hmm.
time, when I was 19, I tore my ACL.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And because I tore my ACL, I was seeing physiotherapists very often. I was going to the biokineticist every week. So I just had an insight as to what their day to day looked, how their processes worked, and I was able to identify a gap. So
Mm-hmm.
just being in that situation, being surrounded by these practitioners on like a daily, weekly basis, I felt like I had somewhat of a competitive advantage. And that was
Mhm.
what led me to going down this alley and actually helping private practice owners grow their practice and grow beyond just seeing one-to-one clients.
Okay, interesting. And did you take the approach like when you were first starting out of basically doing work for free, or is it just straight up jumping straight into it?
It's quite interesting because we've kind of changed this up, but
Mm-hmm.
initially I was kind of taught to just send it in the sense that like don't do free work, just prove your value and charge a retainer upfront.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've progressed down the agency avenue, I've come to terms and realized that there's a lot of people out there who are very skeptical and have had
Mm-hmm.
very traumatic past experiences. So I feel like if you could lead with free value, or if you could just provide free value upfront and then ask for something after, for example,
Mm-hmm.
our current offer and model that were implemented, and this was like literally 2, 3 months ago, and thank goodness it's going so well, is like, look, like we'll work for you for free and we'll help you get started with no upfront costs or expenses included, like whatsoever. And
Mm-hmm.
only once you start making money will we take something. So to put that into hindsight, an example of what we're doing right now with a nutritional therapist is like we're pretty much helping her sell her course, and we're not
Mm-hmm.
charging her any retainer, but we're taking 20% revenue of everything that that course brings in. So it's like it's a
Mm-hmm.
one-one. It's like, look, like Faree, we have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You have absolutely
Mm-hmm.
nothing to lose. The only way we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get paid is if we sell your course. Like, why don't you get started? So that's
Of
kind of
course.
the approach we take now. So just to sum that up, in the beginning, I was very much like, no, like my work's very valuable. I don't need to prove anything to you. This is what I charge, take it or not, which is good and there's benefits. But I feel like when you mature and you gain slightly more experience, you start to realize that the relationship you build initially by
Mm-hmm.
providing that free value and that free work or just helping them get started without any upfront costs is actually the reason why they open to the opportunity. And if giving them that opportunity to get started with no upfront costs is the sole reason as to why they're going to get started and start working with you, then why wouldn't you offer it? If it's the
100%.
difference between yes and no, like you'd be silly not to offer it. And by the way, like I don't think you should sell your services to anyone that you don't think you can actually get results to. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this offer just sums it up. As I said, if you get results, I get results. If you don't get
Mm-hmm.
results, you lose nothing. You just get me working for you for free for 30 days or 60 days, whatever it is. So yeah,
Sure, sure. I love that. I love that. I mean, your journey seems like it's been filled with a lot of ups and downs. I mean, you mentioned you tore your ACL. Was that from soccer, if I'm not mistaken?
correct. Correct. So
What?
I tore my ACL playing
Mm-hmm.
soccer. For those of you that don't know, ACL is like one of the core ligaments in your knee. And
Mm-hmm.
it took me 13 months to recover and return to sport. And I feel like this leads me to the point of a comment that I want to make, and I think is that the most transformational moments in your life happen during the most traumatic experiences. And I know it's very hard to see at the time, but a perfect
Mm-hmm.
example is my ACL. I was always under the impression that I wanted to go pro. I was always under the impression that if this ACL injury ever happened to me, it was the end of my career. I'd never be able to walk again. And I know I'm being dramatic, but like this is genuinely what goes through your mind, you know? You're
Mm-hmm.
not quite sure of how it's going to end up. But at the same time, like the worst experiences often lead to the biggest blessings. And if you can just identify that in the moment, if you can just accept that, okay, what's happening to me as of right now is absolutely terrible. It's shocking, but it's preparing me for something that's to come in the future. I feel like if you can adopt that mindset, it just makes every experience, it just makes every experience so powerful. Because if you understand that there's no light without dark,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like this is the roadmap. Like you can't have good if you don't have bad. It's yin and yang. Like you have to have bad to have.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just understand that and accept that, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much value in that mindset.
True, true. And how important has sport or sports been in terms of your transition or basically your overall mission in what it is that you're building, and just how has sport been a key factor in who you are today in terms of what you're building and as well as what you're actively doing today?
Yeah, great question. I feel like sport has definitely helped me in my life and well, what I'm doing. And I think the reason why it has is that with sport, you always have to adopt a mindset that allows you to be as competitive and capable as possible. Like let's just
Mm-hmm.
say I'm Mamelodi Sundowns, for example, and I'm going up
Mm-hmm.
against Real Madrid, like what's
Mm-hmm.
happening now in the FIFA Club World Cup. Although Real Madrid are so much better and they have Ballon d'Or winners in their team, I s- yes, I may like the odds are against me. I'm probably not going to win, but if I can adopt the mindset that I believe I'm going to win, it doesn't matter how much better they are than me. Just by
Mm-hmm.
believing I can do it, it allows me to have the best chance possible, even if it's delusional. Even if they got Ronaldo, Messi, whoever it is in one team. If I could just potentially adopt a mindset where it's like, look, they're so much better, but I still think I'm going to win. I feel like by adopting that mindset, it allows you to be as competitive as possible. And I feel like that's transitioned into the agency space where it's like, look, it's my first sales call. I'm probably not going to close it, but I believe I'm going to. Don't you think, even if I'm not going to close it, even
Mm-hmm.
if I just adopt that mindset that I'm going to close it, it will give me the best possible chance of closing, even if it's delusional, even if it doesn't make sense. And I'll give you another example just to put this into hindsight because I've heard it online and it just exposes it so well, this thought and an idea that I have. And it's like if I was in a street and 10 armed men came up to me wanting to kill me,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, yes, it's delusional to think I'd beat all 10 armed men when I have nothing but my fists. It's
Mm-hmm.
delusional. It won't happen. But don't you agree that if I believed I could beat them, it would give me the best possible chance of beating them? Delusional or not? Like, just by believing that
Mm-hmm.
that I could beat them and take them on, it gives me the best possible chance. So I think that's the idea that I want to put across, and that's kind of how my lessons from sport transitioned into the agency world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I think that's a very important mindset to have. Like you're about to get killed by 10 people and you just have to believe. Like that is so important. Like that belief. And how important has the mindset? Like have you been doing things specifically like daily mantras for you to have this kind of mindset, or how did this kind of mindset come about for you? Or is it just always been part of your programming?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be completely honest with you, it wasn't part of my
Mm-hmm.
programming. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
normal. I was like any other person in school. I didn't have these crazy mindsets that allowed me to be as competitive as possible. I've
Mm-hmm.
just learned them as I've gone, and the people I've met, for example, inside a players club, we've had calls with crazy people. One
Mm-hmm.
that stood out for me and you, I know, was Dan Martell. Learning from people like that and having those people as a mentor has been incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you just learn stuff online from these people who have experienced life. And I feel like if you take the lessons they've learned and apply it to your situation, it makes such a significant impact. So there's many things that I live by, and another thing that I'd like to touch on is that a strong body is a strong mind. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like as a man, by being in fantastic physical condition, you can solve a lot of your problems. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I really stand by. I genuinely believe that a strong body is a strong mind, and that if you're strong on the outside, you can be strong on the inside. But if you're weak on the outside, and you can't, you need to be able to like crush a nut between your hands. Like that's how strong you need to be. You know, I feel like if you're
Mm-hmm.
weak on the outside, you can't be strong on the inside. So that's something that I live by, and I encourage all men to get in the gym, work hard, get a six pack, and as I said, I genuinely believe that you can solve so many of your problems by just being in fantastic physical shape. And this isn't something that I'm just preaching about.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I've experienced myself. I've seen people very close to me going through very difficult times, and they literally went to the gym, and it solved.
Mm-hmm.
They were no longer depressed. They were suddenly happy. They were suddenly working harder.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes from experience. And as I said, I just encourage anyone and everyone to adopt that mindset. Before saying you're mentally weak, just get physically strong. Just go to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
eat healthy, train hard, and I promise you, you'll change the trajectory of your life very, very quickly.
True. What constitutes, or what is your definition of mentally weak?
Yeah, it's a great question because I feel like what I identify me mentally weak with and what other people would is very different. But
Mm-hmm.
essentially, the way I see mentally weak is just being just not backing yourself, just not having that.
Mm-hmm.
Like another example, I didn't know how I was going to pull this off, but I was
Mm-hmm.
delusional. I was crazy in my head to think that I'd make a plan and find a way. So I
Mm-hmm.
was confident. I feel like someone who doesn't think they can pull it off, someone who doesn't believe in themselves, someone who can't pull it off is mentally weak. And I feel like that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not tuning anyone or being disrespectful to anyone. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is that if this is you, and this was me, by the way, then
Mm-hmm.
change it around. Believe that everything in your life is a choice. Because if you believe it's a choice, you can then own it and have the power and authority to change it. But if you sitting there sad in your room and life isn't good and you're not doing what you want to do and you just say, it is what it is, it's happened to me, it's bad, it's not my fault, you don't have the power and authority to change that. But if you sit in there and you're like, everything that possibly happened is completely and utterly my fault. If it rains, it's my fault.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that gives you the power to change your life. And once you own it, you can actually take steps and you can have daily standards in place to go ahead and turn that around. So that's one big thing that I definitely wanted to touch on.
Great. I think ownership is so important. I mean, for me as well, it's changed a lot. And saying, hey, like, no matter how many times like things go bad, it's my fault. But not all the time it's your fault. But I guess there's a fine margin, and you can correct me if you have a different point of view on this. That it also gets to a point where sometimes it becomes too much, where then you blame yourself for every single thing, and that kind of leads you down to feeling bad. But also think at the same time, if you have a strong mindset on that, like to say like, hey, like it's my fault, but I'm gonna figure it out, that completely changes the game. And I don't know, you can correct me if you have a different point of view on that.
No, for sure. I completely see how it can be used that way, but I feel like it's how you use that energy. So if you're
Hmm.
using that negative energy to empower you to be better, by all means,
Hmm.
that's perfect. And I'm sure you can agree with that. That's the way you want to
Hmm.
use it. But if you're going to use it to, like, if your roof comes tumbling down at home and you're going to
Hmm.
use that to allow you to be negative and sad and upset, like, obviously that's not going to be good for you, you know? So I think it's
Hmm.
all about how you use that energy, and you have to make sure that you spiraling it towards a positive direction as opposed to letting it get you down and be sad and upset and just ultimately suffering from stuff like burnout and so forth. So I think it's very important how you actually use that energy.
True. Have you ever suffered from burnout or well?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't really believe in burnout because I don't really believe in things that take power away from me. But
Hmm.
I definitely do think there is burnout out there. But I feel like if you can understand that there's different seasons in life and that the season you're currently experiencing is very hectic and there's lots on your plate and you feel like you're burning out, I feel like by just knowing that another season's coming in the next few months, it kind of gives me that capability and that power to propel forward and propel through that burnout. So
Hmm.
although I may be experiencing something along the lines of burnout, I don't necessarily believe I'm burnt out, if that makes sense.
Okay. Because you've never like truly experienced burnout, right?
You could say so, or I've experienced it and I just didn't allow myself to believe it was burnout.
True. And is that a good thing for you, or do you believe it's a good thing for you? Like the way
I
that
think
you're
it's a good
currently
thing.
approaching it?
I agree. I think as a man in life, you have to adopt a mindset that allows you to be as competitive as possible. And if
Mm-hmm.
me not believing that burnout is a thing, it's just a season in life, allows
Mm-hmm.
me to be the most competitive and gives me the mental capacity to continue through that season, then I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
positive. Once again, I feel like everyone's philosophies are very dependent on how they use it and how they and what direction they allow that philosophy to point them in life. But I feel like
Mm-hmm.
with me, the way I use it and the way I use it to my advantage, it's only for a positive direction. And this is another thing that I want to touch on is that like my philosophies and my version of success shouldn't be yours. Like everyone
Mm-hmm.
should have their own. And I feel like in the agency space, everyone wants a fancy watch. Everyone wants the new latest Lamborghini and McLaren and whatever car it is. But in
Mm-hmm.
actual fact, like I don't feel like that should be your version of. I feel like everyone should have their own version of success, not what Iman Gadzhi achieved, or not what Farid achieved, or not what Dan Martell achieved. Like everyone
Mm-hmm.
should have their unique. and their own version of success. I mean, everyone has a different why, so why must your version of success be the same?
Of course, of course. Everyone has their different points of views that make up who they are and how they see the world, and that's a very good point. Do you read a lot, like a lot of books, like in terms of books?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely don't read as much as I should be. I think reading
Mm-hmm.
is extremely beneficial. I'm just capped on time. But I do have a tendency to purchase books and start reading them and not complete them. But it is
Mm-hmm.
something that I want to work on in the future. One of my favorite books that I've read is Atomic Habits. I think it's absolutely incredible. I feel like the way you can change your life's trajectory just by changing daily habits is so influential and so powerful. So, for anyone out there, I definitely encourage you to start reading. And you don't have to be some crazy freak to read a book. Like, you can literally read 5 pages a night. You don't need to be one of those people who read it in a day. And if you are, that's also perfectly fine. But just start small. Like, build it up. Just try starting to add that habit to your daily standards. And yeah, so I definitely encourage you to read. Um, I think it's extremely beneficial and it's something I definitely want to work on a bit more in the future.
Agreed, agreed. And how important is that starting small principle for you? I mean, I've seen it time and time again, like from my own worldview, that people say, hey, they want to hit this big target, but they don't start small, they start big, and ultimately most of the times they do fail because they, like just saying, hey, like, I'm going to start big and I'm going to make it big, but not realizing that in order to get there you need to also take these small steps in order to build those daily habits. I'm actually reading a book called Compounding Effect. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yes.
have you heard of it?
Of course.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like how important is that principle of starting small in your worldview?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I genuinely do think um that you should set goals bigger than you can comprehend. But at the same time, I think you should have smaller goals in place that help you and make sure that if you achieve this goal, you're on the stepping stone and correct path to your bigger goal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you only have these crazy goals where it's like I want to make $1 million by the end of the year, if you don't make it, like you're gonna feel very down, very upset with yourself. But if it's like, okay, like in 3 months, I want to be at 200K. And
Mm-hmm.
just if you have smaller goals in place that are a stepping stone to your bigger goal, I feel like that can definitely help you because there's a lot of guys that set crazy goals up front and they don't get that and they end up quitting because they're so far away from that massive goal. When in actual fact, they've achieved so many things because they didn't have those smaller goals in place. It's like they feel like they're a failure and they're not going to get to where they want to be. So I actually have daily standards in place, and then I also have like 5 year goals in place. So I think it's very important to have the balance of the two. Understand that this is here, but this is potentially achievable in like 6 months down the line.
Okay, interesting, interesting. I agree because that momentum that you build from those small goals that build you up to your big goals ultimately just cannot go. You can't unmatch that because momentum is so important. I don't know for you, but I've realized at least in the past couple weeks, months, building momentum ultimately just does so much for you because if you get that small win, you get that confidence to say, hey, if I can do this, I can do this, and then you keep on building on top of that and then stacking those wins ultimately allow you to get that big win that you've always been achieving for, like making $1 million in a year, you know what I mean? But you have to start small. do you
For
think
sure.
do you think it's often overlooked, like the importance of it to start small?
Of course. Of course. I think the private victories come before the public success. So there's so many things that you'll achieve in private that should be kept to you and yourself before you actually get that public success, which could be the McLaren or the Lamborghini. There's so many smaller things that have to happen before that end goal happens. So I think
Hmm.
it's so important to have smaller steps in place and stepping stones that lead you to your ultimate goal.
True. And what for you? What can these small steps be? For me, it's just uploading these daily videos, or, and for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, for sure. as of right
Mm-hmm.
now, and obviously this changes a lot because you achieve them, and then once you achieve them, you have another goal, and you achieve that, and you have another one. But as of right now, the goal that I'm looking to achieve is just to provide as much free value upfront, prove our
Mm-hmm.
value, and then be like, look, like this is what we're doing for you. We just want to take a little bit of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the goal as of right now. So we've been reaching out to people and it's like, look, we want to get you started. We see the potential in your brand, in your practice. We can help you grow it by doing this, this, and that. We're happy to get you started with no upfront cost whatsoever. Are you open
Mm-hmm.
to this? And it's like, by all means. So we're trying to get as many people on board to do that as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, as of right now, or rather our goal for June, because we're now approaching July, we wanted to get 15 people who were keen to take us on that offer. And
Mm-hmm.
we're not there as of yet to be completely transparent with you, but
Mm-hmm.
we do have a couple more days and hopefully we will reach that milestone. But if we don't, we still took action and we way further than if we didn't. So yeah, I try my hardest every day and I try achieve those goals. But if I don't, it's also not the end of the world. But I do
Mm-hmm.
like to have them in place because it guides you on to where you should be heading in the direction you should be propelling yourself into.
True. Agreed. Agreed. So yeah, so I just Okay, cool. We're back. We're back. Okay, cool. So, in saying that, I think that's very important. So, in terms of like you mentioned that you have clients that you're actively outreaching to, how important is your client acquisition strategy in terms of getting new clients on board? Like, do you have any at the moment that you're actively implementing or?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So, one of the big things and one of the big acquisition methods that we currently rely on is LinkedIn outbound.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what you want to do is you want to try identify where your niche congregates. So for example, my niche congregates on a platform like LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm
Mm-hmm.
targeting private practice owners, the physiotherapists, biokineticists. For example, cold calling, you just hit the gatekeepers, hard to get through them, but a platform like LinkedIn, you reach them directly. So you literally end up in their not mailbox, but they end up receiving the message like a WhatsApp. It's very clear,
Mm-hmm.
it's very straightforward, and you can reach them
Mm-hmm.
directly. That's kind of the acquisition method that we've been using. And as time goes by and you build up relationships and you work with clients, I think you genuinely start to realize the power and authority of referrals. So that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we're trying to go massive on because there's no bigger client than a referral. The trust is already established. They've seen results for potentially a friend or a colleague or so forth. So I feel like it's definitely a long-term thing, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like once you do reach that, it's like you can literally run your agency purely on referrals. Like you don't need to be sending silly voice notes or text-based messages on LinkedIn anymore. I feel like you eventually reach a point where you can purely rely on referrals. And obviously you can still do these acquisition methods and different stuff, but the point I'm trying to make is the power of referrals and the authority it brings to the market. So that's something that we're really, really trying to build up. And yeah,
Agreed. Mm, agreed, agreed. And how important has I know you do daily posts on LinkedIn and how I was just wondering like how important has that been for you in terms of getting inbound, like building a big social personal brand on LinkedIn? Because I know a lot of people like from at least in our space have personal brands in terms of Instagram and all these other platforms, but how important has having a personal brand on LinkedIn been for you?
yeah, great question. So, for those of you that aren't in the agency space, essentially the reason why we do post on platforms like LinkedIn every day is for content-based sales. And what that means is that people approach you to work with you through your content. So you position yourself as an authority, you position yourself as a solution to their problem, and based on that, they see you as a solution and therefore they approach you. So in the agency space, we call it like an inbound lead.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that daily posting is massive. There's so many benefits to it. For example, obviously inbound leads. Another one is follow up. Say I've reached out to a prospect and they agreed to hop on a call, but now they're ghosting me. If they see a post, suddenly it's a reminder that this guy wants to have a call. They come back to the chat and book the call. So there's endless benefits, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but I feel like building a personal brand is so influential for any business. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's say I could sell a soccer ball as of right now, and let's just say I have no personal brand whatsoever. And
Hmm.
it's we can say it's 10 times the soccer ball that Cristiano Ronaldo is selling, but
Hmm.
Cristiano Ronaldo has a personal brand. Whose soccer ball do you think they're going to buy? Gilad, whose ball's 10 times better, or Cristiano Ronaldo's ball is 10 times worse? So I feel like that
Hmm.
just shows the power of a personal brand. People buy based on the person you are, on the brand you have, rather than the actual product itself. People want to associate themselves with you, in this case, Ronaldo, not me. But yeah, I feel like personal brand is massive in especially in 2025. And if you want to scale a business beyond a certain point, you have to have a personal brand. Every single successful person that runs a successful business in 2025 somewhat has a personal brand.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah. And
And
I think
mhm.
just to continue on one more point, I feel like if you build a personal brand, it doesn't matter what industry you go into, you'll always be successful. Like if I had to stop an agency today and I had no personal brand, I'd struggle whatever industry I go into next. But if I'm a massive personal brand and I leave the industry and I go into something else because of my personal brand, I'll succeed.
Agreed, agreed. So you're on the opinion that personal brand transverses into different industries, like if you do pivot. And I think a great example of this, I'm not sure if you know, is it Brad Pitt, the guys that bought Wrexham?
Yeah. I know Brad Pitt is. I don't know if he purchased Wrexham. I stand to.
Um Yeah, I think, but you know the story of the owners of Wrexham, the movie stars that basically transitioned into owning a football club in the third division, and now they're in the second tier of the English Premier League. I mean, yeah,
The
are you
League One.
aware?
Yeah.
Yes, League One. Are you aware of that story?
I don't know the exact story, but I know who Wrexham are. I used to have a coach who supported them and followed them, so I'm not aware of that story. But
Yeah, so basically what they did was that they leveraged the guy that built Wrexham leveraged his personal brand. He was basically making $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, per shoot because he was contracted by an agency, and then he realized if I'm selling this and they're paying me $1 million, how much are they making off of that? And then he decided, okay, let me start my own thing. And then from starting his own thing, he then bought Wrexham, and now look at how well they're doing so right now in this present moment in time. I know I'm leaving a lot of things out, but this is just what I remember. And
yeah,
now they're in the second division, and it's so crazy that his personal brand transfers from being a movie star into owning a football club. And if that's happening, just imagine the other levers or levers that we could possibly pull simply by just having a personal brand on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Just imagine the pull that we could use to leverage in different industries.
yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And I think the
Yeah.
power of a personal brand is unmatched. I think it's I think it's single-handedly the biggest asset anyone could own in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally.
Agreed.
I don't in
Agreed.
2025, I don't think it comes down to the quality of a product. Obviously that matters and you want to do the best you possibly can, but at the end of the day, if the person who's selling a product has a big personal brand or selling an info product or a course or whatever it is, like it will sell. It doesn't matter about the quality of it. People will purely purchase based on wanting to associate themselves with that person that has the personal brand.
Agreed, agreed. And also as well, just to touch on it, how important has networking been? Like I know you and I met through networking through A players, and shout out to James as well. How important has that been? Just a quick, how did you find out about A players and how did you get into it? And how did we get to connect and how important has it been for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the agency space is somewhat saturated in Europe, but I feel like in Africa here, you're very much on your own mission. And Three, I know you can relate to this. So essentially, what happened was that there was a community called A Players Group, where essentially it's like a networking group, and there's live calls on like a weekly basis, and they get guest people on, and people like Dan Mottel, Jordan Walsh, Arlen Moore, and so forth to come speak to you. But yeah, I feel like the power of network is so big. Like to think that we are as close as we are right now, knowing that we wouldn't even have met each other if we didn't join through A players is crazy.
Mhm.
So I feel like by having a strong network, that also matters. But I don't want to over obsess having a strong network when you're getting strong. I think it's important, but I don't think it should be a reason that you don't start because you don't have a strong network. Like that's something much like referrals. I feel like a strong
Mhm.
network comes with time. And once again, it comes down to the common denominator of providing value. Because if you have so much value to offer, but I have nothing to offer, like that's not really a network. But if you have value you can offer to me and I have value I can offer to you, that's what a strong network is. So I definitely first focus on building yourself up as much as possible where you can actually be valuable to the market and then
Mhm.
start networking. Not to say that you mustn't do it from the start, but I feel
Mhm.
like you can put a bit more focus onto it when you're actually valuable.
True. And one of the I actually watched a video last night where it was talking about VCs, like venture capitalists, and how they are and people are more willing to help you out on your journey if you're put like the analogy was, I think it was Chris Rock. The analogy was essentially when he was stuck on the side of the road and he was wanting people to help and he was waving, everyone just drove past. But when he started pushing the car, people started stopping and coming to help him, which basically was a good analogy because I thought about it and it was like, hey, if people want to connect with someone, they're more likely to help someone that is on their way, like actively building something, rather than someone that's just seeking to say, hey, I want XYZ, rather than saying, hey, I'm building something and I need help to get to where I want to get to. You're more inclined to help that. And I don't know if you are of the same opinion or if you have a different perspective on that.
No, I completely agree. I think one of the things that I always touch on, and if you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram or any of those platforms, you'll see
Mm,
that one of the things I always stand by and I always say is that raw action always wins. Like, don't stand there waving, asking for someone to stop and help. Just do
mhm,
something and you'll be rewarded because the universe is so given if you actually try. But I'm not saying try for a week, try for 2 weeks. If you try and keep your head down for 6 months, literally that's all it takes. You can completely and utterly turn your life around. So I think if you understand that, if you genuinely give your best day in, day out, and I'm not saying work 6 hours, I'm not saying do something and then put this on the side. If you genuinely try and give everything you have, the universe will reward you. And I feel like that example you just described is a perfect. It completely aligns with the point I'm trying to make because when Chris was waving, no one was stopping. But when he tried to push the car, when he took action
mhm.
towards what he wanted to fix and what he wanted to solve, which was getting the car sorted or getting it to where it wanted to be, suddenly people stopped and they helped him out. So I feel like the universe is so given, but you just need to try.
True, true. Just raw action every single day with consistency,
Correct.
and
Correct. And
things will work out.
consistency compounds.
Agreed, agreed. And yeah, do you have any more like final words that you'd like to share? Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave the viewers with?
Yeah, I think just to sum up what I said is that a strong body is a strong mind. I think if you accept your current situation in life and you understand that it's completely and utterly your fault, you have the power and authority to change your life. It gives you the energy and the power to actually go ahead and change the trajectory of where you're currently headed. And I think the last thing that I touch on, and I just like to sum up, is that your version of success should be your own. Like, I don't want to achieve what Iman Gadzhi achieved. Like, that's great and awesome, and it's so cool. But, like, just because he's the person that he is doesn't mean that my version of success should be that. So I feel like everyone should have their own success story, and I feel like everyone should have their own goals. Don't have a goal because that person's cool and he achieved that. Like, just because he achieved everything that he has and he's got a Rolls Royce, whatever, it doesn't mean that my version of success is achieving what he has done and getting a Rolls Royce. For me, it could be retiring my mom. It could be it could be something on a completely different path. So I feel like that's one of the messages that I definitely want to leave with the audience, and also understand that raw action always wins, as we just discussed.
Agreed, agreed. And okay, that's pretty powerful. That's so powerful. And the last guest that we had left a question. We're gonna steal a playbook from Diary of a CEO. So shout out to Diary of CEO. The question was, if you could sit in the room with three people that inspired you the most, who would those three people be and why?
Well, this is a good question. Put me on the spot now. Um, it's a great question. And I feel like the thing is that I'm going to name a few people, and just because I'd like to sit in the same room as them doesn't mean I
Mhm,
necessarily agree with everything they say, but I think they
mhm,
just have a very interesting philosophy to life.
mhm,
Um, One person would definitely be Andrew Tate. Some people
mhm,
say he's very controversial. Whether you agree with him or not, the guy's a genius.
mhm,
Um, He'd definitely be one person that I want to sit in a room with. Probably Genghis Khan would be a second.
mhm.
And then a third person that I'd want to sit in a room with would probably be, sure, it's a good question. Be Andrew Tate, Genghis Khan. At this point, as of right now, maybe Donald Trump.
Mhm. Oh, interesting, interesting.
It's
And what?
somewhat controversial again, but I feel like the life they live in and the authority and power they have in the world, or Donald
Mm-hmm.
specifically, like him or not, agree with what he says or not, I feel like it would be very interesting to sit down and have a conversation, potentially a debate, and challenge him on some of his decisions and thoughts that he has. So those would probably be the three people that I'd sit in the room with as of right now.
Interesting. I love that. I love that. And do you have any question for the next guest that's gonna join us?
Yeah. Um, I feel like a question that you could potentially ask would be if you had one life lesson that you had to stick to for the rest of your life, regardless of your situation, what would that be? And it has to be something that they'd stay true to, and
Mm-hmm.
something that during the good, the bad, the great, the terrible, they stick by, and it's something that they always stand by and and kind of resonate with, regardless of how good or bad the situation gets.
Agreed. Agreed. No, I love that. I love that. So I will let the next person know. So thank you so much, bro. Just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us and record this podcast or slash
Nice.
just coffee chat. It was
Thank you.
really insightful, and I'm sure the viewers got a lot of value from that. Like people watching this, and yeah, I'm just wish to have you again, and wish you many more years of success and just keep crushing it, bro. Like I know you and I still have a lot to do together, bro, and we're still gonna do it, and a lot of trips to also take together, and a
Yeah.
lot of cool things to build as well. So I just want to wish you all the best on your journey, bro, and just keep crushing it, and hope to have you again sometime in the near future. So yeah,
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It was very eventful, and I hope that some people gain some knowledge within the audience, and I hope that it was helpful. And as I said, thanks for having me on, bro. And I'm looking forward not only to experiencing many things with you and many different trips, but also to impacting other people around us and genuinely just doing the best we possibly can and look back at life one day and be happy and proud of what we achieved.
agreed, agreed. And if you guys want to connect with Gilad, please make sure to check out the comments, follow him on where can people find you, let where
Yeah, for
can
sure.
when
You can find me on LinkedIn, Gilad Janet, Instagram, also Gilad Janet. If you want to check out a bit more about what we do and how we help private practice owners, you can check out workflowwiz.com. And if you do have any questions about getting started, feel free to reach out to me. But other than that, I hope to connect with everyone through my social pages. So if you do want to reach out, feel free.
great, great, great. So I'll just leave all the links in the description, and then you guys can just go check them out. So yeah, so thank you, bro, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Wish you all the best, and keep crushing it, bro.
Thank you, bro. Wish you all the best
Cool,
too. All the best and speak
cool,
soon.
cool.
Thanks,
Peace.
brother. Cheers. Bye.